So there is absolutely no doubt about it that 2023 was the worst year for the Walt Disney Company for multiple reasons out there, and we've gone over this before, but a lot of it had to do with the box office flop trend that was going on for the second, third, and even fourth quarter of that year, and not to mention that it was also, of course, a part of their 100th anniversary. I mean, we all saw what happened with the Marvels and how that was the biggest Marvel failure in a very long time, and how Elon Musk, South Park Studios, and even the Daily Wire were calling out Disney for what they were all about. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So, focusing on Lucasfilm, we know that Kathleen Kennedy has been an absolute menace when it comes to that division of the Walt Disney Company. I mean, she has literally destroyed the very brand, by the way, that used to be the biggest thing that you would expect to see in theaters. And now it's more or less of a whatever scenario. A lot of fans have walked away from this brand, a lot of fans have walked away from this franchise and want nothing to do with it after what they did with the Acolyte series. Now, there's been a lot of back and forth scenarios happening between the Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm, and specifically how Kathleen Kennedy's behavior is beginning to erupt right now behind the scenes. Let's get into this, shall we? Now, one thing about Kathleen Kennedy is that we know that she's dealing with a lot of lawsuits right now, and this has a lot to do with it, by the way, of why Disney is beginning to lose a lot of trust within Kathleen Kennedy, and exactly why this is leading to a lot of arguments, a lot of scenarios that are very much heated moments between Kathleen Kennedy and the Disney executives. So this is only the beginning of the end as far as I see things. However, with the Walt Disney Company and all of its divisions in complete freefall mode right now, one major development going on right now has more to do with Kathleen Kennedy and the multiple lawsuits going on currently that recently created a serious shakeup between Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy that led to multiple heated exchanges coming from Kathy. Now, between, of course, the makers of Rogue One, a Star Wars story, getting sued over improper usage of recreating the character Tarkin, to the Gina Carano and Elon Musk lawsuit, now, of course, beginning to balloon altogether, a growing number of board of directors, shockingly, have been calling for Kathleen Kennedy to step down at Lucasfilm as the president, while other board members are pushing for Kathleen Kennedy to stay in October. Kennedy, of course, recently blamed, of course, for having a lack of transparency with the Disney executives, and the conflict led to a disastrous remote meeting that took place between both Bob Iger and the executives and Kathleen Kennedy herself, where she is already demanding that she holds a full right to having the option on whether or not she wants to step down when her contract is up by this October, as she wants to stay until 2027. To make matters worse for Kathleen Kennedy, even Bob Iger is calling for Kathleen Kennedy to consider taking the option of stepping down by her own will to save the image of both Lucasfilm and Disney. Kennedy's contract is best described as a very complex and expensive contract, and nobody currently is even willing to take the job as president of Lucasfilm, which also throws Lucasfilm in quite the catch-22. Now, though of course some board members are looking to throw in the vice president of Lucasfilm to take over if it leads to that point, Kennedy already went on full blast with the Disney heads after their most recent emergency meeting related to Lucasfilm took place that involved Kathleen Kennedy in the gathering. Now, this involved how they are already dialing back on marketing funds for Skeleton Crew, a new upcoming Star Wars show that will also include the typical Disney agenda, though not quite as severe as the Acolyte. Now, guys, let me say one thing about this before I move on. Now, these lawsuits that are going on right now are the very thing that led Disney to really losing a lot of trust in Kathleen Kennedy. Will it be enough to convince her to step down and to have her quit from Lucasfilm? To be honest with you guys, I'm going to be very direct. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that she's going to stay at Lucasfilm. She's going to do everything in her might to stay at the company until, like I said, 2027. That's basically what she wants to do right now. And it's going to be a lot of in-studio fighting between Lucasfilm and the Disney company, and this is going to begin to erupt further and further. So it's going to be interesting. I think the shocking thing here is that there are now a growing number of board of directors that want Kathleen Kennedy out. Now, her contract, we talked about this months ago, it's a very complex contract, a very expensive one. There's a lot of pathways that they could take if they wanted to. Whether or not they want to take those pathways is up to Bob Iger and some of the board of directors, but I think at the end of the day, Kathleen Kennedy is going to get things done her way, and she's going to end up staying at Lucasfilm. You watch. I would not be too shocked if she is able to get things done her way this October. We'll have to wait and see. Now, interestingly enough, yet again, Kennedy is, of course, crossing fingers that this will be a success for Skeleton Crew, as she is also willing to step down early, even after her contract continues in October, if it comes to that point. However, right now, all she wants is a success point before leaving, and is beginning to fall into outrage with Bob Iger, the board of directors and the executives, and how that is, of course, beginning to grow in numbers of those at Disney losing any confidence at all in Kathleen Kennedy. She also had a serious issue with Bob Iger axing and shelving multiple Star Wars TV shows, where now Star Wars shows will only be used sparingly and at a bare minimum, as they look to focus on movies instead again. Now, though still, of course, focusing on the Disney ideology with DEI. In addition to this, Kennedy is also beginning to have multiple arguments with Bob Iger about how unwilling he was to stand up for Kennedy after the 2 recent lawsuits that are beginning to put so much pressure on Disney, and how that led to the growing number of Disney heads backing away from Kennedy at all costs. So guys, like I said, I mean, this is a very interesting series of developments that are really creating a lot of back and forth arguments between Kathleen Kennedy, the Disney heads, the executives, if you will, and this, of course, could very well lead to further issues with Lucasfilm. I would not be too shocked if we begin to see more lawsuits erupt that are going to lead to more board of directors losing more confidence in Kathleen Kennedy. Now, again, a lot of this has to do with how the shareholders view Kathleen Kennedy running the show over at Lucasfilm. The fact that it got to a point where Bob Iger was pretty much backed into a corner and said to himself, yeah, I think that after the Acolyte, we can't do any more of these anymore. We can't do any more shows like this. And basically all bets are on Skeleton Crew right now. If she can't get that success point, even if she does continue with her contract in October, if she can't get that success point in 2024, she wants to stay until 2027. It's basically the pathway right now. If she takes that contract and continues it until 27, she will not step down early unless Skeleton Crew is a success. So it's going to be interesting, to say the least, of all the different directions that they could take in this scenario. Now again, I mean, after the whole Leslye headland scenario and everything that happened with Amandla Stenberg and that whole fallout that took place, it's only the beginning, and we have a lot more to talk about the current status of Lucasfilm in the coming days, because there's a lot to talk about. The in-studio battles that are going on right now between Disney and the Lucasfilm Story Group and those creatives over there as well. I would like to hear what everyone has to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.